You probably remember him as Hank from Corner Gas, or Dan for Mayor, or from Just Friends. Fred Ewanuick is a guest on the first episode of the new season of the Leroy and Leroy podcast. Fred, first off, did I pronounce your last name right?
Nope.
Oh, thought I had it.
That's all right. It was good though. Yeah. It's I don't know. I should have changed my name when I got into the biz. But I kind of dig it. Like I like, it gives me a giggle when I hear. I got introduced as Jeff Ewanuick once, and I thought that was the best. They got the first one wrong too. Well, our family says it Ewanuick, and my dad years ago went up to Vernon. Because there's family in Vernon, and apparently we spell it and say it wrong. So I don't usually correct people because we might actually be saying it wrong. So yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, absolutely it is. You're talking about when you're a kid growing up. Where did you grow up? Where did everything start for Fred?
I grew up in a town called Port Moody. It's not so much a town anymore. It's a full on city. I was always a city, but when I grew up there, it was like 5,000 people living there. And now I think it's like, I don't know, 30, 40, maybe 50,000. Like it's just exploded. Oh, wow. But yeah, it's about 20, 30 minutes out of Vancouver. Yeah, anybody that lives in the Lower Mainland, I think knows where Port Moody is. It's got great little area around the inlet. And yeah, it's a good little town. Great place to grow up in hindsight. When I was a kid, I couldn't wait to get out of there. But in hindsight, it was a great spot to grow up.
So did you have the acting bud as a kid?
No, I thought I wanted to be a trucker. My grandpa had a trucking company called Van Merritt Freight Lines, and my uncle drove truck for my grandpa, and my mom and my aunt and my other uncle worked in the office. So it was like a real family kind of thing. So me and my cousins we hung out a ton there in the yard, like grandpa in this rip around in the forklifts. Until my cousin Frank drove it off the bay. But and he put the forks through a trailer once too. My cousin Frank, he was a terror on that thing. Yeah, so I thought I was going to be a trucker. I actually thought my first car was going to be an old Kenworth. I can't remember exactly, or 60 something. Number 16. It just sat in the yard, and I'd sit in it, pretend I was driving up to Merritt all the time. I thought, yeah. So I thought I was going to be a trucker. No, I didn't. Acting wasn't in the book. And then I wanted to be an NHL goalie. But I was smart enough early on to realize that wasn't going to happen. I wasn't very good.
You're still playing hockey, though. That was when I reached out to you. You said, "Well, as long as I'm not playing hockey, I'm good."
Yeah. Well, I am. I caved, and this is my first year 50 plus. I'm playing with the old time. It is better than I thought. I thought it was going to be a cakewalk, and I'm getting lit up a little bit. Yeah, no. Sadly, I'm better now than I was when I was in as a kid. But yeah, I love it. I love everything about. You know what? I don't think I actually like hockey. I just like goalie stuff, and I don't even know if I like playing games. I think I just like the gear, and I like train. Like I got a couple of buddies that are goalie coaches, and I like going out and training and doing all the drills and the slides and everything. But the games, I don't know. I'm like, I keep going, oh, God, when's the game over? Like, Jesus.
That's how every kid starts out wanting to be a goalie, though, right? It's like, oh, I want to take the gear home.
Yeah, look at that mask. Oh, look at that. That's a nice mitt, Yeah.
My son was a goalie for 2 years, and then he had a game where he got run over about 6 times, and the refs didn't call anything, and the puck kept going in, and they counted him as goals, and then he was limping off the ice, and I'm like, okay, you're fine. And then he showed me this big bruise on his leg from getting run into, and he's like, I'm never going in goal again. And I was okay with that financially. So
yeah. When I wanted to be a goalie because of Richard Brodeur here in Vancouver. He had that big run in '82, and I was like, I want to be like King Richard. And so I told my mom and dad I want to be a goalie, and I looking back, they must have been like, oh crap. But back then, I imagine they still do it, but the association would give the goalies gear, but it was the worst. It was the worst gear. Like, it was so bad. Like, it's just like that. Like, I like probably 90% of the saves I made, I looked like this. I don't know. If you're watching the video proportion of this, it looked like I'd be like, because I just knew everything was going to hurt. I made that noise too, a little, before the puck even came to me. Yeah, I love it though. I don't know.
They say there's something off. There's always something off if somebody wants to be a goalie. Is that true for you?
I don't know. Ask my wife. I am a bit. I don't know. I guess I'm a bit weird. Hopefully the good kind of weird. I don't know. My teammates seem to like me, so I can't be that bad.
That's good. So how did you come to get into acting then?
Well, getting out of high school. So I'm a little fella, right? So my survival technique going to high school was be the funny guy, and I figured that people never beat up the funny guy. I was wrong, but for the most part, I got through high school. And then getting out of high school, my parents were like, "You got to go to college." I didn't know what to take. A buddy of mine said, "Oh, you should try out for the, you like to goof around, try out for the theater thing." So that's what I did. I tried out for theater at Douglas College. Got in. Got asked to leave, but I begged them to let me stay. And through that, I got a job at Science World because they were looking for theater people to do their science shows. So I was a terrible actor, didn't know nothing about science, and I was doing like science shows at the Science World here in Vancouver. And through that, one of the guys that I worked with got me to come out to one of his acting classes, this woman by the name of Shay Hampton. And that's when I kind of got the bug. Like something about the way she, did things and I don't know, just I really dug it and ended up got my agent. My agent was in class to visit somebody else, and things just went on from there. Started getting auditions and gigs and stuff, and I loved it. Getting paid to pretend it's hard to it's hard to knock.
No, nothing beats that, eh?
Yeah.
So how did Corner Gas come about? How did that how did you become Hank?
Well, I just showed up, man. Apparently, there's not. There's a little bit of truth to that, but no. So she's retired now, but there was this casting director locally, Lynn Caro, who, for whatever reason, she seemed to be a big fan of mine. And so when the auditions were coming up for Corner Gas, she kind of gave me a heads up, which was, not normal. And she's like, "Oh, there's a show coming out, and do you know who Brent Butt is?" And I did at the time. Brent Butt used to host a comedy show at the Urban Well out here in Vancouver, and I'd been to it a bunch of times. And so I knew exactly who she was talking about. And she's like, "Well, he's got a new show, and there's a character, and I think you're perfect for it." And so she brought me in to tape. So normally how it goes, you go in and a bunch of people are showing up for the auditions, and you go in and you tape, and then you leave. But she really worked with me, with the tape, and she's like which I really appreciated. It doesn't happen, and I don't know why, but she was really kind of in my corner for this part. And then and then they had callbacks where Brent and David Story, who was the head director, one of the producers, they came to town, and they went across Canada, and they came to town, and so I got to meet them, and I showed up, and that went really well, and then I got the part, and I didn't find out till after that. Because Brent told me this. He's like, we kind of were, Lynn was like really pushing for you. And we were like, oh, all right. And, we saw your tape, and, we're like, oh, it's all right, I guess. And she like really pushed them to see me in the callback. And so he said they kind of had a chip on their shoulder about me. They're like, all right, well, fine, let's see this, whatever. And I didn't know that at the time, which I'm glad I didn't, because I would have pooped the bed. Am I allowed to? I'll try not to swear.
It's
but
okay. It's all good.
Oh yeah, I'll do my best. But I pooped my pants. I would have pooped my pants if I knew that going in. Like if there's any kind of extra pressure, because I was a nervous wreck to begin with. But luckily I went in, and I remember I showed up to the audition. There's a bunch of guys there, and they were all dressed like Hicks, right? And I just showed up with like a t-shirt and my jeans, and I'm like, oh God, jeez, I'm screwed. I didn't get the memo. But apparently that was another thing. Brent was like, yeah, and you're like the only guy that didn't come in looking like a hick. And I was like, oh, good. See, so stupid got me the gig. Like if I had any brains, I'd be like, oh, he's from Saskatchewan. He's a small town. He's probably dressed like this. And I just showed up.
I love it. So had you ever been to small town Saskatchewan prior to this?
No, never been. It was my first trip out there. I didn't know what I was getting into, and it was everything people told me it would be.
Yeah. So what was that? What was it like for you the first time you landed in Regina? Then.
The first time I landed in Regina. So we get into where are you? Are you in Regina?
In Moose Jaw. Yeah.
Oh, Moose Jaw. Yeah. Okay.
Road.
So you know the airport. Like it's a little bigger now, but back then when we showed up, they didn't have the news section. It was just like, I got off the plane and on the tarmac, which like I was like, where am I? And so I show up and I get they had one baggage carousel then. I think they've got 3 now. What do they got? 3? Maybe 4?
Yeah, they got 3 now. We've grown a bit.
and so the first person from the show I met was Ron, one of the drivers. And he grabs my bag for me. He's a very nice guy. And he's like, okay, sorry, it's going to take a little bit. It's rush hour. And I'm like, oh, yeah, no problem, And so we get in the car and we drive out and we get to the place we're staying, downtown Regina, like in 15 minutes. And I'm like, Ron, I thought you said it was rush hour. He's like, well, yeah, that should have taken us 10 minutes. And I was like, oh man, you don't know rush hour. Like, I know it's grown quite a bit now. Like even towards the end of the show, Regina started getting a little bit busier, but, so that was my first sort of take. And then going out when I told, cause I was playing hockey beer league at the time. And I said, yeah, I got this gig. I'm going out in Saskatchewan. So I heard all the jokes, like, all the it's so flat jokes and all that. And one of them, one guy says, "Oh yeah, man, you're gonna see a whole train." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, "You're gonna see a whole train. You'll be driving, and you'll see the entire train from engine to caboose." I'm like, "All right." And so the first time we're driving out to Rollo, just south of you, south, right? Yeah, just south down, right? Yeah. And I'm in the car with Ron was driving and Brent was in the front and I was sitting in the back and I started losing my mind a little bit. I'm like, oh my God, look, you can see the entire train. I'm like genuinely getting worked up because I thought it was just a joke. And I'm like, there, you can see it, the whole train. And Brent just kind of turns around, looks at me, he's like, yeah, like I got to deal with this jabroni from the West Coast, but yeah, I'm not pandering. Like I loved it there. Thought about buying a place.
Yeah.
Because there was a place in Cathedral in Regina for like $98,000. Nice, like heritage house, and I'm like, oh my God, like I got to do that. But we were stretched a little thin. We bought the place in Vancouver and didn't know how long the show was going. But man, I kicked myself every day for not buying that little spot. It was such a beautiful little house. 98,000.
Just based on the real estate spike since that time too.
No kidding.
That would have been a great investment.
When we first started shooting, there was a place in Rollo for $15,000, fully furnished. I'm like, God damn! Like, will you take my credit card? Like, I should get this. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that small town life too. That just off the grid in the middle of nowhere almost.
There's this old timer that
lived in Saskatchewan.
Did he? I didn't know that.
He currently lives. He for a long time he lives in the middle of nowhere in southern Saskatchewan. Bought a farm out there, and he's in a place where nobody can bother him. So it makes sense.
Good for him. Oh, there's this old timer that used to hated us because we'd be shooting and we'd close up a sidewalk or something. But he was this crotchety old guy that I guess the story was that he lost his license to too many DUIs. So he got around it by driving his little John Deere mower tractor around town. And he had the big, the flag with the little orange flag for, so people could see him come. And just like crotchety guy and the thing would yeah.
It's like a real life Oscar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Like throughout your time on Corner Gas, you guys had like a ton of different cameos and stuff as well. Like people who showed up. Was there like a favorite person who was on the show for you that you got to meet?
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, I mean the hip.
Yeah.
But it's there was a ton of people. Like I was a huge Kids in the Hall fan, so
Yeah.
we had Mark McKinney and Kevin McDonald were both on the show, which was like a big deal for me. But the hip by far. I mean, so you had Brent on. I'm sure he talked about it too. But they when they did their thing, it was like the crew grew by by 150 people, and all of a sudden there's like who are all these people? Like they just got swarmed, and I'm not a big starstruck guy, and I don't like bugging people, and so I kind of didn't. I got really shy, and I didn't go up to say anything. They were getting bombarded, and I didn't want to bug them. And then this is one of the coolest things that ever happened to me. And I'm leaving for the day. We shot their bit, and then I'm leaving for the day. And the van was pulling out, and the hip was in the van. They had to get off to go on the road or something. And the van was like almost all the way out, and then it stopped and came back in. I guess because I was signing out there, and Gord Downey, I got a bit choked up here. Gord Downey gets out of the car and he comes up to me. He's like, "Hey man, I didn't get to say hi." And so we had this little conversation, and I'm getting a little choked up. This is weird. But it was a big deal for me. I guess maybe because he's passed on, but it was just such an awesome moment. He took that time to come back, and because he could tell, because I was lurking in the background, like a little fanboy, like just like gleaming at him, probably like a psycho, maybe a little bit. But I just, man, that tickles me. That story, that moment. So by far the hip. That was a long. Jesus, what the hell's wrong with me?
No, man, I think it's amazing. Every story I've ever heard about Gord is in that light, and how like amazing of a person he was.
That,
and it's
that brief moment. So
they were my all-time favorite band. Oh, am I? Uh-oh.
Yeah, come in and out. Now it's not good, but yeah, okay. Same. Like it's like Desert Island. One album is that's the hardest part. It's not who, it's which album. Like I guess. Do your favorites count? Could I just take your favorites?
That's what I was gonna say too. Yeah, that's the album to go with there. Your favorites, and then you get a little bit of everything that way. Oh no, that's awesome. So you commit to Quarter Gas. Was this your first kind of like big role that?
I did.
How long? Go ahead.
Sorry, Nancy and I did an independent movie just before Corner Gas, called Delicate Art of Parking, and that like it wasn't the biggest, but that was my first lead in something. But Corner Gas, by far was the biggest. Didn't know it at the time. Like, we had no idea what was going to happen. We thought, I was going to, Canadian show. I'll probably last a season. Yeah. Pay the bills for a year. And then nice knowing you. See you guys. Yeah.
So when did you know? When did you know that it was something special?
I was at the Costco. And my phone rings, and it's Yvonne and Suzanne Boyce, the heads of CTV, the heads, like the top, like there's nobody. And hi Fred, hi, what's it? Just wanted to let you know that. And then this was after the day after the first episode aired, and it got over 1 million. Like it was the first time in a long time that a Canadian show it like got more than like a few 100,000 viewers. Never mind over 1 million. And so they were phoning all the cast and everybody to let them know, and they said, okay, we'll see you for season 2. They're like, oh my God, I got a gig. So I think that was the moment where I'm like, okay, I got a gig for a while, and then as the season went on and like every episode was consistently getting over 1 million, you're like, all right, this will be all right.
That's fantastic. So how did things change for you, like personally? From, pre-Corner Gas to now you are on this massive, what became a Canadian classic TV show.
Yeah. Well, I was a working actor. Like Like that was the biggest thing. It's funny, like, because I lived in Vancouver, even the show was super popular. It wasn't overly popular in Vancouver. So it wasn't until like I was working where I'd be like, so first season we go to the pub and do everything. Nobody knew who that were. And then second season you go to O'Hanlon's and everybody wants to buy you a drink, and like you're walking out of there gooned at like 5 a.m. It's like, what happened? So that was a big shock. So yeah, like for the run of the show, anywhere east of the Rockies, I was like, oh no, put your wallet away. I got you. No, dude, oh no, all that kind of stuff. But back home, it was just like a bubble. It was just regular old jabroni Fred.
Kind of nice in a way to be able to go back to that at home, right? Though, where you can go back to a bit of a calm compared to everyone buying you a drink the minute you walk into the bar.
Well, I could use it. It's not like we were making big bucks on corner gas. Look, it was never a problem. Like everybody was always really nice. I think that's the difference. Like it wasn't. Even though it was at the time, it was a hit. When you think about it, it's like, okay, a million people. That's a lot for a Canadian television show. But we didn't have any of like the viral, like going, like there was no social media. None of that stuff was going on. So it was pretty isolated, right? Like it was very isolated Canadian. It wasn't like we weren't the Beatles, right? Like, you could still go places. Everyone was just nice, right? Like that. It was, you just had more friends, which was kind of nice, as opposed to being bothered. Like I never felt bothered. It was just, more people. I would always get freaked out because somebody would start coming up to me. He's like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I've forgotten I don't know." So it's like, thought I forgot the person's name. It's like, "Oh no, we haven't met." Oh, great. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a go-to when that happens, when you do run into someone that you have met before but you can't remember their name? Like, hey, buddy, is there a line that gets thrown out there?
Yeah, boss. I usually, hey, boss, how's it going? That's if I say, hey, boss, I've forgotten your name. Yeah,
that's a good one. I think it's Buddy for me. That's
Buddy's Buddy comes out too, but boss, I don't know why boss.
I love it.
Which makes
go ahead.
It's weird for when it's a woman. It's hey boss, what?
Fair enough. So was it 6 seasons, Corner Gas?
6 seasons, Corner Gas. Then we did the movie. And then the cartoon, the animated one, it was a good run.
No kidding. So where in that timeline did Just Friends come about?
Just Friends was season 3 or 4. Can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember. It was in about the middle of the run, somewhere around there. Yeah.
I know for Moose Jaw, that was Just Friends is a big deal because so much of it was shot in Moose Jaw, and everyone still talks about it. But what was that? What was it like being on that set?
It was awesome. It was Ryan Reynolds wasn't the huge star he is now, but he was, obviously everybody knew he was at the time. He was Van Wilder and a bunch of other stuff he'd done, and the coolest part was like, it didn't feel like, so I don't know how to say this without sounding like, but like a lot of times as a Canadian, when you work on an American show, you kind of feel like the help. Like you feel like you're there just because like you're a tax credit, or, you don't usually get the juicy roles. It's rare, I should say. And that show never had that feeling. Like it just, everybody seemed really happy to have everybody that they had. Actually a local actor, she lives in Toronto now, Amy Maticio. She played my wife in the show. So we were buddies. So that was fun. So we got to hang out a lot. And then everybody like Chris Klein, Amy, and Anna and everybody and Ryan, they were all just super nice. And Ryan, he'd be giving me like lines. He's like, hey man, this would be really funny. Like you should say this or try this, or like, why don't we do this? Like it was like, he wasn't big timey. Like he really wanted it to be as good as possible. And so he made my role probably twice as big as it was on the page, which was awesome. Like, and it was just fun to just be on that set. Like it was a good set to be on. It was -52 with the chill some days, which wasn't great.
Oh no.
Yeah. that was a bit murderous. Like, and they had us in these, winter clothes, like American winter clothes, and like it was like a thin layer and like a nice coat. It's like, yeah, it's 52, minus 52 out. Like, it was literally like, it was nuts. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was set in New Jersey, right? That was the whole premise of it. It was, yeah. So this is what they wear in winter in New Jersey.
Yeah.
We're not in New Jersey.
Yeah, it was great though. That was a lot of fun, and it's weird. Like that shoot was 17 days for me, and I made more on that movie than I did in a season of Corner Gas, which was also nice. Yeah, there was a lot of overtime.
The whole shoot for you was 17 days.
Yeah,
that's wild.
Yeah.
So how does that work? Is it all day, every day? What does that look like?
It was just they shoot. So at Corner Gas, we'd shoot on anywhere from 9 to 12 pages a day, whereas like on that show they'd shoot 4, right? And then they're like, "Wow, we might need you, we might not, so we want you to come out." And there was one day where it was like that. It's like, "Oh, we might need you. We're not sure if we're going to get to this scene, so come on out." And it's like, "All right." And then I fell asleep in my trailer, and then I woke up, and it was like 12 hours later, and I was like, yeah, I remember opening the door, and I was like all wobbly asleep, and I saw the AD, and he looked at me, he's like, "Oh crap, you're still here?" And I'd like had like 4 or 5 hours of overtime. It's just I got paid to sleep in my trailer. That was a great day. Had lunch too, so yeah.
That's fantastic. No, I love it. So did you guys know when Corner Gas ended? Like, did you have a feeling that the movie was coming? Was that in the plans already, or was that something that kind of came together after that final season?
Yeah, that was a surprise. No, I didn't know that was coming. It was got a call from Brent. It's like, "Hey, just give you a heads up. What do you think of this?" And I'm like, "Yep, yeah, please, yes, please, yeah."
And then you get into the animated series, and what was that like? Voicing Hank as opposed to being on set.
Oh, it was a dream. I mean, it was great. I said years and years ago in an interview, like I play Hank as long as they'll let me. So I was stoked, and on top of that, I didn't have to wake up at like 5 a.m. I didn't Hank was easy, like a little bit of makeup, throw the hat on, and I'm good to go. But there was even less of that with the animation. Like I just literally show up, and I'd been doing a bit of voice work before that, and I was really digging it. So I was like to get more of doing voice for animation was just it was awesome. Yeah, I'd still be doing it if they let me.
Fair enough.
I mean, I just do at my home. That's why I bought this mic, so I can pretend I'm still doing the show. I just sit in my little closet and like do various lines from the show and pretend.
That's so true. You mentioned that you'd play Hank forever if you could. So a couple of questions off of that. The first one is, how often do you get that if you're somewhere? Do you get, Hank, how's it going?
Yeah, here and there. It's weird. I don't know if the hat is like the Superman Clark Kent thing, but like I'll be out with Lorne, and Lorne is just like, he's just a magnet, right? Like people like go up to Lorne, and I'll be sitting right beside him, and they just like maybe they hate me. Like secretly, the Corner Gas community hates Hank. He's like, I wish they'd kill Hank. Why do they have Hank is like a stain on this franchise? If they would just eliminate Hank, maybe that's what's going on. I don't know. But no, I don't know. I've never, even with the run of the show, like I said, I would get recognized and stuff. But if anybody else was there, Nancy or Brent, obviously, or Lauren, especially Lauren, like we'd be sitting having lunch or something, and then people would be like, "Oh, Lauren," and then And then I remember one time, actually, he pointed at me, this guy? And the person was like, "No." I was like, "Oh, okay."
You got some distinction from the Hank character. That's
makes
you stand apart, I guess.
Yeah, usually if I start talking, somebody would say, I heard your voice, and then I realized it was you.
Fair enough. I feel like playing that one character and like being cool with being that character for a long time feels like a very Canadian thing to me. I look at the Trailer Park Boys who have been on those characters for ever now.
Yeah.
Look at Red Green, who is still making stuff as the Red Green character.
Is he?
You know, Bob and Doug. There's like a Red Green podcast. We had him.
Oh, okay.
Had him on our podcast a couple of years ago, and then all the video didn't work. Which was
no.
But yeah, he's still got the Red Green podcast. But I mean, is that a thing in the U.S. that people play one character forever? I feel like it's a very Canadian thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know that's the fear of a lot of actors is they get typecast and then they can't do anything else. And I don't know if there's any truth to that or not. I mean, for me in Canada, I just stayed in Canada, so there's just not as much opportunity to, so you take what you can get. And, fortunately for me, I got to play a character that I loved playing. Like, so... to me, if you get typecast and never work again, I could see that being a problem. But if you get typecast and you're constantly working, great. There's worse things to do. I mean, when I was a kid, I in the summers I worked for a plumber literally digging holes and then filling them back up. Like, I'd much rather be pretending the same guy than digging holes and filling them back up all day.
Right?
So, yeah.
Is that the worst job you ever had?
The worst job I ever had was a bingo hall when I was in high school. I worked in the bingo hall, and man, those ladies aren't winning bingo. They're pretty harsh. And I worked in the concession, and man, if you got their order wrong, look out. Like, James Cameron's got nothing on these bingo ladies. Like, whew, let me tell you. Unbelievable.
I can imagine.
And back then you could smoke and there was no ventilation or nothing. I promise I lost 10 years of my life working in there. Brutal.
I remember working bingo fundraisers as a kid where, it's like the high school football team is working this bingo to raise money, and it was just a thick cloud of fog and smoke in there. What a different time. Things have changed a little since then.
Oh, no kid. Actually, that reminds me that going back to the first time getting into Saskatchewan. So we get the next day. Oh, look at this. The cat's jumped up here. Sorry. There was a pantry around the corner from where we were staying, and so I go in there to get some breakfast, and the first question was like, smoking or non-smoking? And at that time, like, Vancouver had non-smoking for years, and I was thrown for a loop. I was like, what? Non-smoking, please. Oh, and then she took me to the non-smoking section, and it was the raised section, so everybody below was smoking, and I'm not even kidding. It was like, raised a little bit, one of those split level kind of places. And so you're just sitting there eating your eggs, and like this waft of smoke is just coming up.
That's so true. I was actually going to say that as you were talking about it, that was my memory too of going there's a couple different restaurants around Moose Jaw where it was, you'd go in and you'd ask for the non-smoking and it would be raised and right beside the smoking section. I'm like, something's not working here. Someone thought if you were up higher, you'd be out of the smoke, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it was all these owners of these restaurants that had a thing for non-smokers, right? Well, I'll show them. You come in, huh? You don't want the smoke? All right, I'll give you your non-smoking section.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah, taking me back here on this one. So what's going on these days for you? What's keeping you busy?
Well, the hockey, I play on 2 teams. I'm playing a lot of hockey. Got back into golf. I don't know why I did that. It's driving me up the wall. I'm still plugging away at the acting. I finally did, after years of being told I'm not Hallmark material, I finally got into a Hallmark movie, and that comes out next month. Yeah, one of them Christmas ones that we shoot here in July. That's the opposite. That's the opposite of the Just Friends, where we're freezing our butts off in the snow. Here it's like July, 32 degrees out, and they've got us in like legit winter clothing. And you're just like, I've lost 5 pounds every day working on this movie. But that was actually a ton of fun. Did you watch The U.S. Office?
Yeah.
Yeah, Angela Kinsey was the lead of that. I played her husband in it, so that was pretty
Nice.
wicked. Yeah, yeah, it was a ton of fun. That was a bit of a dream job, actually. So I got that coming out, and then I got me and my buddy have been pitching ideas for shows and trying to get something made. No luck yet, but we got one that we're hoping to get in front of the right eyes pretty soon. Maybe, yeah, you never know. Might get another show. Knock on wood.
That would be incredible. Did you ever think about going down to the States? I know you mentioned, like, I stayed here in Canada. Was it ever an option, like, oh, maybe I need to go down to LA and see what happens? Or is it just like, no, I just love it here?
Yeah, well, I did give it a go 1 year for pilot season when that was a thing. After Dan for Mayor, my agent was like, maybe it's a time to give it a go. So I went down. Just turned into a really long holiday. Didn't really had a few meetings and stuff, but yeah. So luckily, I was staying in a great spot. It was a lot of fun, and I was in Burbank. It was super nice. Weather was super nice. Yeah. So I gave it a little bit of a go, but I'm pretty lazy, and I'm not overly ambitious. And just whatever.
I like it though. Just apparently see what happens.
Yeah, well, when you want to pay the bills, ambition might be a good thing at times. But I've been pretty fortunate. I'm getting by. That's my problem. Drives my agent crazy. I get even when things were going well and like I was, as in demand as you could get, I suppose, in Canada. I'd be like, nah, I'm good. I had a couple of gigs this year. I'm all right.
You know what? At the end of the day, as long as you're enjoying life, right? Like, it doesn't matter how much everything else goes. If you're so busy that you can't actually take time to enjoy it, what's the point?
What's the point? You're exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
Fred, I super appreciate you taking time out to hang out and chat about all this with me. And I wish you all the best down the road. Thank you so much for this.
Oh, thanks, man. Right back at you. I appreciate the invite. I was stoked when I saw your little message there on the social media site. I don't know if you're allowed to mention which one was which, but thanks. I appreciate it. I was stoked.